Welcome to Resilience Development in Action with Steve Bisson. This is the podcast dedicated to first responder mental health, helping police, fire, EMS, dispatchers, and paramedics create better growth environments for themselves and their teams. Let's get started.
You know, you've heard me talk about this before. Getfree.ai. Great for your note-taking, good for your transcript, good for your goals, good for everything that you do in a HIPAA-compliant nature. And if you use code STEVE50 at checkout, you will get $50 off your first month. And also, if you get a whole year, you will also get 10% off the whole year. But Getfree.ai has freed me to do more things with my life, including work on other passions. So get freed to do your notes, get freed from doing your goals. Getfree.ai with code STEVE50 to get $50 off your first month. Well, hi, everyone. And this is not going to be a numbered episode because I'm just having a great time with Joe. I want people to really go see Joe Zodi's, all the stuff that he's doing. And we were having a conversation, like 30 minutes is not enough. You'll have to come back because I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to blow this one out too. But one of the things we talked about, and I think it's important to think about, is the retirement for our guys.
Yeah.
Because like, I'm not saying that business doesn't have that, and I'm not trying to put down any other businesses. However, I think that the stress of that role loss for people is humongous. The lack of support is sometimes a problem too.
Well, as you know and I know, and again, my wheelhouse is drug and alcohol, suicide education, peer support. You guys are trauma therapists. You guys do with the grief. When we come into this field, most of us, when you go to an academy, for some people it's traumatic. I came out of the military, and it becomes this team and then this family. I could honestly say a lot of the folks that joined the military didn't have a great family upbringing, right? That's why they joined.
Right.
And then we become part of that. Why do people join gangs? It's their family, right? And then you get the team aspect of it, which we love. Right. And let's not kid ourselves. Some of the research that me and my partner did is that the job is addicting. It's sexual. And if you can't understand that, you don't know what the job is.
You've never been in a
You've never been. For the firefighters, when they call out a working fire, it's the biggest orgasm going. For me, it's the shots fired call. Every night it's it's the greatest show in town. So now when you're running at that level and you worked hard for I think the academy's at 34 weeks now. When I through was 16, and military police school back then, I think it was 14 weeks. We did basic and AIT all at once. So when you look at the level of training that we got and we work our rear ends, you're talking taking a test, passing the oral boards. You work your rear end to get to that academy date, right? And then some academies are stronger than, we know the Mass State Police, their standard is like the Marine Corps. They do a phenomenal job. Then you get the Boston PD, which I'm going to go on the limb and say it's the best academy in the country. Boston PD teaches their cops, unlike anyone else, how to be that community interface. I wish everybody every city cop can go to Boston. They do that good of a job. I've always been a fan of the work that Boston does, and the state police, but different roles, totally different roles.
Different, but you need to have different, because of the training is specialized for that. A state is way different.
One trooper, one riot. They're out there with no backup.
Right.
It's just they do a great
and
job.
Being on the side of the road when you're on 90 or 95 is a different ballgame.
Yeah, you're human traffic.
85.
Yeah, and they do, and their service units do a great job. Their wellness unit is phenomenal. They do great work. They've come a long way. They do a work culture. But what I'm getting at, so we go all this stuff. Now you come in the job and you become part of this cohesive unit.
Right.
And you're sold its family, and you got the blue line, and you're going to the wakes, and you're going to the funerals, and at any minute it's gone. And when it's gone, I've been there, folks. It's gone. And when you're there, you're a guest. When you're gone, you're a pest. And all of a sudden, you're at home. The week before, you're chasing bad guys. And now, in my case, I was a stay-at-home dad using duct tape to put my kid's diaper on because my wife was doing all that.
Yeah.
And now I'm isolating. Nobody's calling you. It's not that they don't want to call you. they don't want to catch what you have. It's called retirement.
Right.
And you're isolating, and how self-medicating with alcohol was my thing. And you're not talking to someone. I was the hypocrite because I was the stressed guy, we called him back then. And this is what happens. You lose your identity because you're sold. Because it is, I don't care if people, it's not your identity, it's just a job. That's bullshit.
Correct.
It is bullshit. And you have to, it's a grieving process. And when you leave that profession, if you don't talk to a Steve or a Hayden or a Kathy or a Jane or an Amy, you're going to get in trouble, or a pair. And this is what we've seen when we start looking at our suicides and we start looking at our substance abuse, our highest population right now, the ones that we can track, our cardio issues, are huge, cancer issues. We look at our retirees. And our retirees, we're not talking the guy that makes it to 65. We're talking the Joe Rizzutis that at 45, you had to leave the job. We're talking the officer that gets hurt in the line of duty with 2 years on the job. We're talking these people. Now you get a physical injury. And now the Commonwealth, we've got to change the laws. We're told we can only make so much money.
Right.
And now we're penalizing us for doing our jobs. So this whole thing going on that we pushed away. Right. We didn't want to know it. And thank God I get some good managers, and Tom Truckle being one. I wanted to do this, and Jane wanted to talk about the retiree stuff for years. Hayden, I know it's been on Hayden's. That's where I got my help was Hayden. So finally, like I said, Dr. Odermatt in California, with First Responder Wellness, he does a 30-day program. So I said, we got to do better here in Mass. So we just rolled out a program at NEBPA. We're going to have an association of retirees. We're going to have mentors. They're all peer trained, number one, to the state standard, the Mitchell model. Yeah. Some of them are going to be we also rolled out a recovery coach program just for first responders. And these are peers that have been successful in retirement. Yeah. That do well in business and whatnot. And we're going to offer an association where once a quarter they can come and have lunch and we can network. We're going to offer individual counseling through Jane and myself where if they want to talk to somebody, they can talk to LCSW or they can talk to me under drug and alcohol for the union. And we're going to also offer that peer mentoring. So there's a couple of phases, and we just rolled it out, and we're in the process of putting it out with the NEBPA. And I think it's going to work. I think it's got legs because when they leave the union, they leave. Now we're bringing them back in and say, listen, you still got a lot of value. Right. And they can help us raise, do awareness and just checking in. So I think it's going to be I think it's a good thing and it's something we had to go do. Substance abuse goes hand in hand when you isolate. And then people think they're going to do geographical cure. They go to Florida. Yeah. And what do they do down there? They go back on the police department. Yeah. It's insane, right?
I know. I met a guy last year when I was in Florida. He was like, "Oh, I used to be a cop up at," because I told him I was from Mass, and like, "Name me where you live." I'm like, "You're not gonna know where that is." He's like, "Try me," and I told him, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I was a behavioral cop for." Yeah. I'm like, "Oh." Yeah. I was like, "That's why you look old."
So again, when who does the firefighters, the corrections officers, it's everyone, the dispatchers. Police have the hardest time. Fire service. They always used to have a side hustle. Right. Coppers. We used to hire them because cops can't bang a nail. And then what happened is they all go out and become paramedics, and now they're working their side hustle, and they're seeing trauma. Right. And then they wonder why we're having a problem in the fire service. Corrections is the unsung heroes. I love these guys. I could never do the job. I crap my pants the first time I went to Bridgewater Correctional Facility. I don't know how they do it. I'm glad they get a 20-year retirement. My boss, Tom Turkle, as you know, was the director. We don't do enough for those poor people. The county corrections are a little bit better because they go out in the community and they work the road a little bit, and they do a lot with the community. And I like the work they're doing on recovery. But even them, when they leave there, that networking seems to go away.
Well, this is a couple of things that I want to mention. So shout out to my group I have my group at 7 p.m. every Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd say half of them are retired. And half of them, like, when I told them it's going to hit you with a ton of bricks, now, like, after 6 months, they go, "You weren't kidding." And I'm like, yeah, no kidding. Because this is your role for, like, I don't care what people say. It's not the same. If you were, like, a CEO, you can't carry that elsewhere, you don't stop being a cop. You don't stop being a firefighter, an EMT, or paramedic, or a dispatcher for that matter. And I think that that's the change in role. And one of the things that I've faced a lot, and I think this is the other harder conversation we need to have, is some of these guys, they get so down on themselves. Not only they get substance abuse, but what happens with substance abuse? Now you start thinking, what the fuck am I doing here? Should I kill myself? And suicide's a big problem too.
Huge.
I think we couldn't talk about the medical. I mean, I've had guys like 6 months out of retirement fucking drop dead.
We just had that beautiful individual, the chief, right next door. I mean, retired a couple of years, and we see that all the time.
Because they're not ready, and that's because, and some of them, like, you know, like, they get to a point where they don't feel good about themselves and this and that. I would love to talk about that in the retirement world, but I also think it's very important to start breaking that stigma on the level of correction is another passion of mine.
Yeah, I know you. Same with my partner, Jane. She's just zero love.
That's my peeps. I think I've been to every facility in Massachusetts except a couple. But I think that what the bottom line is, I was the therapist, just for the record. But all joking aside, let's go back to suicide. I don't know where to start, because I would say to you that if we're not making it easy through administration, through even anything else, I see it all the time. Peer support might be enough. It's maybe a shameful thing to go to on-site. And now they're like, well, what am I going to do? And because of the substance, you lack judgment. And who has the best drugs and or weapons available to them is first responders.
And we know the statistics from the VA. Some will go back and forth. My statistics, I usually use Karen Solomon from Blue Help. Linda Kukulis is doing great work. I hope you're on their badge. But, you know, I would say, actually, I was just honored to ask to take part, and I can't, in a think tank with DOJ. They invited me down to Maryland. My wife's going to be in France, and I want to go down there just to be honored to be part of a conversation for the national law enforcement for Safe Leo. If you don't know Safe Leo, fire police, go online, get involved with it. It's for nothing.
100%.
Safe Leo program is I've been involved with the get-go. Some of the resources are there. It's for nothing. DOJ puts a great product out. So I think, you know, let's talk about suicide. Let's talk about we did you guys in the psychobabble world called hypothesis. And I love talking about this because I don't, you know, we're up at on-site one day, and I work with two amazing civilian therapists, and they come from a different world a little bit. And I lost my best friend. I consider one of my good, solid friends, my boss, was police suicide. My first suicide was a kid I put in the National Guard as a recruiter, and I was a full-timer for the Guard MP company, and my best friend was on Revere PD and responded to our best friend that I put in, Brian Chait, God rest his soul. He committed suicide. So it was my first exposure. And what bothered me with that was I had to go out and investigate that as one of my own. I was a 21, 23-year-old kid working for the Guard. And I remember, because I have a learning disability, I was more upset with my boss, red penning. I flipped Brian to brain, and he went up. Well, no, my best friend just died of a suicide, and you're worried about a typo on a fucking type, you know. And this is what stuck with me, right? And I pushed that one down. So let's talk about suicide. One thing we realized, me and my partner, Jane, when we were at on-site, I said, you know, I come from a police background. Let's talk about a profile. You guys call it hypothesis. So when we think, you know, if back in the day we had the 3 Bs. Remember the 3 Bs? We can't, politically correct would be, you know, we'll call it, you know, relationships, financial, and substance.
Right.
Okay?
But I remember the 3 Bs.
Okay, the 3 Bs. Now, that was told to me, kid, you know, as an old time kid, you know, be careful of these. It happened to me in my career, right? So now if we realized, and I was talking, when you're practicing, what do you see? Okay, wait, we're onto something. So we started a relationship group up at on-site. And we told Hayden about what our work was. We're looking at this. He said, well, put it on paper. I brought it to, and it was the FOP Wellness Conference #2. And I ran it through Dr. Coughlin. I ran it by Schlosser, just the best of the best, Sherry. He's like, hey, you know, how'd you come up with that? So I work with this pretty, you know, wild clinician. She's seen this. So then we started asking in the group. We said, hey, listen, has anybody in this group, relationship group, had these things? And then have you ever had thoughts of suicide? And out of the group, out of the 6 that would be there, 3, and then we'd have 1 or 2 that actually had a plan. So now we know we're onto something. So now we bring it to the field and like, hey, listen, even on your, you're talking to a first responder, and if you see that they're gambling a lot, which is gambling is, Dave Nagel, great guy. If you ever want to research somebody who state rep that does great work on gambling, he lost it all, and he gambling's a new thing that we're seeing. So you'll see all these things if you go outside your marriage, like a lot of us, unfortunately, they do. And
it's a stereotype for a reason.
Then happens is then there's the hamster wheel. Then you feel guilty, you self-medicate, right? So you know where I'm going. You start going to the financial piece. Then you're at the point where there's no hope, and then you're sitting there looking at the gun or the rope. And so it didn't take a rocket scientist from Revere to figure that this is common sense. If we see these indicators,
right,
we need to say something or step in. Then what we figured, okay, let's start training people up on QPR, qualify, persuade, and refer. Simple 3 things. If you get a chance to do that training, it's the best in the world. Just identify these people. You're not ratting them out. Talk to them. Hey, you're having a hard time. You're out of the bed. What's going on? Why don't you go talk to somebody? Well, I'm afraid to, because now we've got the post in Massachusetts. We've got to worry about the cops losing their licenses.
Right.
Thank God we got Dr. Bluestone. She understands it.
Hanya's amazing.
She absolutely is. And hopefully she'll be at the meeting next week. She gets it. But I can't say, for the rest of them, what's going on. So if we could see those indicators, we can start to address them. So we did, because the voice of the union, and a strong union, and with Tom, we're educating all our presidents and reps. If you have somebody go out on internal affairs, you get somebody going out injured, make contact with them, refer them to us, talk to them. If you see somebody that's drinking too much, don't just think it's part of the culture.
Right.
Say something.
It used to be part of the culture.
It still is, unfortunately.
No, but I mean,
less.
I'm talking about not talking about it.
Oh, no, talk about it. Yeah, and I think one good thing that Sherry Martin brought to the table with the FOP was the wellness consultations. But we're culturally competent, right? But you can't just send them to like doctor the box.
No.
And you can't, because they're just checking the box.
Right.
I know Tom Greenhall is working with the Post to come up with a standardization for Mass. But it shouldn't, where it works, it shouldn't be something that you need a person to understand how to do them. You just can't go to a big box and have them go to a therapist that doesn't understand the culture. You're just wasting time. I think you have to have a Steve or a Fred or a Bill to have a relationship with the agency. The fire service does it very well. Yeah. Their peer support model is and I'm trained in it. I represent a lot of fire departments. I like their model, which is I'm trained in Mitchell. I like the idea of going to the kitchen table and building a rapport.
What do people want? They want the rapport. They don't want, that's the other part I explained to some of my fellow therapists that sometimes struggle with this, and I'm being generous here. Like, you got to meet them where they're at. You don't need to be they don't want a clipboard. They don't want you to write notes every other day. They want to make sure that you're just paying attention to them, and they just want to get it off their chest. And they especially don't want, oh my God, give me a couple minutes.
Oh, we've seen that, haven't we?
Oh, more than you know, man.
Oh, no. And the other thing, and I'm going to probably get a lot of flack for this, and I'm going to go right to the belly of the beast. We're putting thousands of dollars into CIT for the community, which is great, right?
Right.
We have chiefs that spend more money on challenge coins and coffee cups than they do on mental health.
Right.
Or plaques for their office. But here's the thing, the CIT clinicians, okay, they shouldn't be talking to your first responders. They're not Steve, they're not the Riches, they're not the Amy's, they're not that broke their chops in. And nothing against them, but they've been a pain in my rear end out there. And because we had one that interceded into a police officer suicide, and she was traumatized. Now I got to deal with her, okay? So these chiefs that are thinking they're saving a buck, the other thing is they work for the administration, and you're making a big mistake talking, because I'm not saying they're going to go back, but find somebody that knows what they're doing. Do your homework.
I mean, you know the rumor mill stories,
oh, yeah.
right? telegraph, tell a cop, tell a firefighter. I mean, that's what you got to do, and the rumor mill starts. So if your clinician is within those walls, you're already screwing yourself over.
Now we're hired, like my private practice, we're hired to the unions, most part, and we're departments to hire us. But one thing our departments do, we make it perfectly clear. That money will go through the union. And I have some great chiefs on the fire service, because I can't represent other police departments because I'm with NEBPA. My fire chiefs are amazing. I do have one pain in the rear end up on the North Shore that is getting involved with the union, but we try to put out his noise. And we've addressed it to the PPFM and MAS. But again, they want control, but most of my chiefs are really good about getting us the funding and then giving it right back to the union. A good example of that is two chiefs. I think Chief Buxton up in Nashua does a great job, and I think Chief Canary down in Chelsea Fire, where they just got the funding and said, listen, here to the union, go out and do this. If whatever you need, I'll get the time off. And I think that's huge.
But I'm going to interrupt you because I want to get back to the suicide stuff because I think it's important to keep that going. Having the time off is essential. Having someone to check on you is even better.
Yeah.
And having continuous treatment.
Huge.
To me, like one of the things that I want to best admit here, and you could correct me if I'm wrong because you're a former police officer. I have to have arguments with some police officers. Therapy does not work if you get 4 sessions and you're suddenly good.
No.
Therapy is a long-term process because what I tell people is that if it took you 20 years to get at this point, you're giving me 4 weeks to fix this shit. And I tell people that's just not possible. And you need to be like, I'm not saying be in therapy every week for the rest of your life. That's not necessarily what I'm saying.
No.
But I think that you need to go with like, this was a symptomology for what you came for about something deeper. None of my first responders ever came in, and that's what we worked on. We worked on other stuff, then we got to that, or we started with that, and then we discovered 14 other things.
I work with a therapist, Tracy Parsons, who's one of the best in the business, every week. I'm not afraid to say it.
Yeah.
And I have to, doing the work that I do, but I want to. And she's a first responder therapist. And I've got so much shit from my past and so much shit that I'm dealing with and the stuff that's in front. I think if society's starting to realize that what we're asking our first responders to do, when you pull back and look into it, how can we not have them have good mental health? And that, we bitch and moan, hey, we want the officers to be well, we want the, posters but the first time these officers ask for help, well, I can't afford them to go for 30 days. Or I don't, that drives me out of my mind. Here's the scenario. If you break your leg, we give them the time off. If you say I have a mental health injury, all of a sudden it's a chore to get them to health. Or we put them in a box and look, he went to see Dr. Summeroff, he went to see the crazy doc. It's insane. It drives me nuts.
What drives me even more nuttier is that if you break your leg, no one ever says, I want a third opinion.
Yeah.
Mental health, I really need the time off for mental health. Are you sure you're just looking for time off to go do? Yeah. And then there's this, why would someone make that, if they had the balls to go see you and say that they have this issue, why are you denying what they're saying? Is there a manipulator here and there? Of course there is. That's in every fucking place, though. It's not, but why don't you take them for their word instead of saying, are you really okay? Do you really need 30 days? Oh, you know what? I hear that alcohol dependence, once 72 hours go by, you're physically, that's gone. So you can come back to work in about a week.
If we want to stop, we're never going to stop suicide, but we're going to try.
Yeah.
We know in my profession with the drug and alcohol, I could say 80% of my people that come to me, they're drinking because of a trauma.
Right.
Or they had a trauma as a kid and it's been big word, exacerbated by the stuff they see on the, I get the big words once in a while.
I don't doubt it.
Because the stuff that they see on their job, right? And we're sold a bill of goods, the alcohol, because it's legal, right?
Right.
And for a lot of people, alcohol has helped them get over certain problems. But you're playing Russian roulette with this product. And if alcohol came to the table now, it'd never be legalized, right? We know that. And then what we do is we're sending them to Doc in the Box, who's putting them on Adderall. They think they're doing the right thing, and they're putting them on these psych meds, but they're not telling them you shouldn't be drinking with this. And now when we get it and we have to sift through what they're on, and we say, listen, this is what works. You're going to be in, some people will be in recovery the rest of their life. Some people, 80%, will just need awareness, right? And then you get the people that will get sober by themselves, you know. Then the ones I have to, we work with. Me, I'm an alcoholic. I go to meetings every day. I'm in recovery every day, but at least offer it. But it has to be palatable. That's the scenario.
And that's the issue. I got consulted from Mass State Police to create like a suicide warning checklist.
Yep.
And they use it, which is great. But I also know that it was hush hush.
Sure.
And I'm not maybe I'm calling out Mass State Police, but that's not my goal here.
No.
My goal is, why is it hush hush? When we have what's the likelihood of suicide? Like 54% more likely for first responders.
70. It's in the 70s.
I that's the last stat I saw.
Law enforcement, anyways.
Law enforcement. I think
Fire.
that fire's like in the 50s. So probably
they've got an issue.
And you don't
Corrections.
But you're going to go, is it really an issue? Can you create a list?
Yeah.
Short, don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
Why is it still a big secret in this field? I don't understand.
Why can't somebody come back to work? I understand somebody has thought, or tried. We can get them to the point. You break your leg, we can fix them to come back. I'd rather have an officer go see a therapist than somebody not go see a therapist to work with.
Right. Because
I know that they're dealing with this shit. Because guess what? More shit's going to be piled on. More shit's going to be piled on. That's a healthy thing. The Fed's are doing that. I got a friend on the human trafficking task force. Every so many weeks, she has to see somebody.
I know someone at the FBI. They're not my client, but they exactly do that. And I think that's exactly what the point is.
If we're going to go after suicide, we have to have a real conversation. And the conversation that a lot of people don't want to talk about, and it's a whole nother subject, the chiefs of police, the fire does a better job. We have to have them understand it's not about you. Okay? This, again, I can go on.
Don't forget about the town managers, but please go ahead.
The town managers are a whole nother. I don't want to get into politics, but I'm dealing with that one fire department in the North Shore with this assistant chief that's just horrible. And again, if that is allowed to happen, where they keep trying to intercede in the peer support and the wellness, and they want to do it their way, they're going to have blood on their hands. And I'm going to get yelled at for saying this, but it's the truth.
But I think this is what I'm saying. Let's forget about silos and let's break some veils here. I'm done with this veil crap. And the bottom line for me is that I've heard someone say to me, and this is I had a private conversation, so I don't want to put him on the spot. The chief says to me, well, I don't want to give him his gun back because he was suicidal. I said, okay. And when someone on site is slightly suicidal, you'll do everything to get away from a pink paper.
Yeah.
And if they have guns, you're not going to be picking on them. So you treat the community different than you treat yours because it's liability.
But there's a time and place. The reason why over the first 40 hours we take the firearm is.
But I get that makes sense to me.
Makes sense. But why the constitutional rights? Number one, number two, is they could be. They're just dented. They're not broke.
They said something and they're going to pay the price. It makes no sense to me.
Well,
but anyway, Joe, we're going to come back.
This is great stuff, and I'm glad it's an honest conversation.
You know what? One of the things before I go, and I hope my conclusion is going to be this with you. I don't have a next episode, so this is going to be a conversation. Thank you for everything you do, number one. But more importantly, it's been a while since I've been so connected and animated with someone who has similar ideas.
Passion.
And, I'm passionate about this. I hope you can see that, and most people know. But you are too, and that's why
Thank you.
We got to work
back
together.
at you, brother. Hey, it's an honor, my friend.
I'll talk to you soon because we have business to do, but you'll come back on the podcast.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Please like, subscribe, and follow this podcast on your favorite platform. A glowing review is always helpful. And as a reminder, this podcast is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. If you're struggling with a mental health or substance abuse issue, please reach out to a professional counselor for consultation. If you are in a mental health crisis, call 988 for assistance. This number is available in the United States and Canada.